The alien vessel hovered in Earth's orbit, its sleek form camouflaged against the dark void of space. Inside, Captain Vrex and his crew analyzed a chaotic stream of human transmissions. A strange spectacle unfolded on their observation screen, a group of humans stuffing food into their mouths at alarming speeds while an audience cheered wildly. "What are we witnessing?" Vrex muttered, his 3 eyes narrowing in confusion. "Is this some form of predatory display?" The ship's AI processed the footage, isolating similar events. Wrestling matches, football games, even entrepreneurial competitions like Shark Tank. The conclusion was clear: humans, despite their fragile appearance, exhibited traits of apex predators. But as the aliens probed deeper, one anomaly stood out. "These Americans," the AI intoned, its synthesized voice tinged with intrigue. "They display exaggerated dominance rituals, relentless competition, and an unyielding obsession with victory." Vrex's brow plates furrowed. He tapped a command into the console, bringing up broadcasts from other regions of the planet. While humans worldwide exhibited signs of intelligence and cooperation, Americans appeared to elevate these traits to an absurd extreme. From televised eating competitions to national slogans about freedom and dreams, everything suggested they were the pinnacle of human evolution, or insanity. The crew decided to investigate further. They descended discreetly to Earth, donning holographic disguises to blend in. Their first stop was a bustling metropolitan area teeming with humans. The aliens marveled at the sheer energy of the environment. Horns blared as vehicles raced down crowded streets, advertising screens screamed messages of ambition and success, and humans moved with purpose that the aliens interpreted as predatory efficiency. One alien, Squill, pointed at a towering structure adorned with a glowing eagle emblem. "That symbol. Does it represent their apex leader?" "Perhaps," Vrex replied. "These humans appear to revere power and dominance." Inside the building, the crew stumbled upon an office meeting. A group of humans debated intensely over charts and graphs. The aliens listened, confused yet fascinated. "This is a clear power struggle," Squill whispered. "Their leaders are chosen based on who can outmaneuver the others in strategy." But the crew's curiosity reached new heights when they observed a suburban neighborhood. Here, the focus shifted from competition to camaraderie, though it still baffled the aliens. Neighbors gathered for a barbecue, laughing and exchanging stories while smoke from sizzling meats wafted through the air. Vrex tilted his head, watching the scene. "Even their social bonds are predicated on rituals involving food. Remarkable." Their breakthrough came when they identified a man named Joe, who appeared to exemplify everything they had observed. A typical American, Joe's online presence was riddled with memes about dominance, freedom, and absurd humor. To the aliens, this was no ordinary human, he was a living embodiment of their theories. "Captain," Squill said, awe in his voice, "we must study this Joe. He may hold the key to understanding this species." Joe, of course, had no idea he'd been chosen. At that very moment, he was scrolling through his phone, oblivious to the fact that an alien crew had just labeled him the ultimate apex predator. As the aliens watched Joe with growing fascination, they failed to grasp the complexity of what lay ahead. For while they believed they were uncovering the secrets of a predator species, they were about to learn that humans, and Americans in particular, were far more unpredictable than their data suggested. And so, their journey began, with Joe as their unwitting subject, and their assumptions about humanity hanging by a thread. Joe's daily routine seemed mundane to him, but to the aliens, every move he made deepened their conviction. They observed him preparing for what they assumed was a grand strategy session, but in reality, he was just going to a football game with friends. As Joe donned a team jersey, the aliens interpreted this as ceremonial armor, symbolizing allegiance to his tribe. Following Joe to the stadium, the aliens were stunned. Tens of thousands of humans filled the seats, roaring like predators on a hunt. On the field, massive players clashed with calculated aggression, their movements precise and deliberate. To the aliens, this was no simple game, it was a battle simulation, honing the skills of humanity's warriors. "These humans train their young for combat through ritualized skirmishes," Squill noted. The coordination, the strategy. They are preparing for intergalactic conquest. Even the halftime show reinforced their belief. Elaborate displays of light and sound, combined with the synchronized movements of cheerleaders, seemed to the aliens like war chants designed to intimidate opponents. They documented every detail, marveling at the layers of planning and execution. But it wasn't just the games. The aliens dove into historical records, uncovering feats like the moon landing, which they saw as an aggressive claim over a celestial body. They found tales of entrepreneurial giants, individuals who built empires from nothing and dominated markets worldwide. Figures like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk were perceived as modern conquerors, reshaping the planet through technological warfare. And then there were the memes. The aliens scoured Joe's online activity, where jokes about world domination and freedom at any cost abounded. To the aliens, these weren't humorous exaggerations, they were declarations of intent. A meme about America being number one was interpreted as a coded message of superiority. This human Joe, Brex said, his tone grave, embodies the essence of what makes Americans the apex predators. His tribe's commitment to dominance is unmatched. Joe's next stop was a local diner. He casually ordered a burger the size of his head, and the aliens watched, convinced they were witnessing a display of unmatched consumption prowess. To them, the ability to consume vast quantities of resources in a single sitting was a trait unique to apex predators. This is no mere sustenance, Squill insisted. It is a statement of power. The more they consume, the stronger they become. When Joe stopped by a car dealership later that day, the aliens' theories expanded. They observed him inspecting vehicles, which they interpreted as war chariots. To Joe, it was just a hunt for a reliable car, but to the aliens, it was a calculated choice of a battlefield advantage. As the day wore on, Joe's actions seemed increasingly strategic to the aliens. His casual remarks to a friend about crushing it at work were taken as literal plans for dominance. Even his choice of coffee, strong and black, was noted as a preference for efficiency over indulgence. The crew convened to analyze their findings, crafting what they called the apex predator theory. It wasn't just Joe. Americans, they concluded, had perfected the art of predation. They dominated through innovation, competed relentlessly in every aspect of life, and displayed loyalty to their tribes with almost ritualistic fervor. Captain, Squill said, staring at the gathered data, these Americans are not merely humans. They are evolution's pinnacle, a species within a species. We must proceed with caution. Rex nodded, his gaze fixed on the screen showing Joe finishing his day by binge-watching a crime drama. He is their champion. We must learn from him, or risk being outmaneuvered. Unaware of his newfound role, Joe clicked to the next episode, utterly oblivious to the monumental conclusions being drawn about him. Meanwhile, the aliens finalized their plans to approach him directly. Their theory was complete. Americans weren't just apex predators. They were the ultimate strategists, equipped to dominate any challenge the universe could throw their way. The only question now was whether Joe could be convinced to share his secrets, or if he would remain an enigma, a symbol of humanity's frightening potential. The aliens approached Joe with what they believed to be a masterful strategy. Disguised as ordinary humans, they introduced themselves as researchers from an obscure think tank studying cultural excellence. Joe, thinking nothing of it, welcomed their questions with casual indifference, believing it was some harmless survey. The aliens, however, treated every answer with grave importance. When Joe mentioned his favorite pastime, weekend barbecues, they took notes on the ceremony of fire and its connection to dominance through sustenance. His description of football games as just a sport was dismissed outright, as the aliens were convinced he was downplaying a ritual of war preparation. You're being modest, Brex pressed. Surely the strategic nature of these contests is central to your people's rise to global prominence. Joe blinked, confused. Yeah, I guess? I mean, it's just fun to watch. The aliens whispered among themselves, awestruck by what they interpreted as a predator's instinct to mislead outsiders. To them, Joe's casual demeanor and humility were calculated tactics to mask his tribe's true strength. When the aliens insisted on seeing the rituals in action, Joe reluctantly invited them to a neighborhood barbecue. To him, it was an ordinary gathering of friends and family. To the aliens, it was a carefully orchestrated social hierarchy. They observed the host's control of the grill, the guests' offering of side dishes, and the competitive banter over who had the best recipes. "This is a microcosm of their tribal dynamics," Squill noted, his voice filled with reverence. "Even in leisure, they compete to assert dominance within the group." Joe's friend, Steve, bragged about his homemade barbecue sauce, claiming it was unbeatable. The aliens recorded this as a challenge of culinary supremacy. When Steve handed Joe a beer, they noted it as an exchange of allegiance between equals. Meanwhile, Joe's neighbor, who had installed an elaborate outdoor sound system to blast patriotic anthems, was viewed as asserting territorial dominance through auditory displays. By the end of the barbecue, the aliens were convinced they had witnessed an intricate blend of strategy, bonding, and competition that exemplified the apex predator mindset. They shared their findings with Joe, who responded with a bemused chuckle. "Man, you guys are really overthinking it," he said. "We're just hanging out, having a good time." But this dismissal only confirmed their theories. "A true leader," Rex whispered, "never reveals the full scope of their power." Determined to dig deeper, the aliens accompanied Joe to a local fair. There, they encountered a hot dog eating contest. Joe explained it was just for fun, but to the aliens, it was the ultimate display of dominance through consumption. As the competitors stuffed their faces, Squill marveled. "Their ability to consume resources at this rate without immediate consequence, extraordinary. This is beyond survival. This is excess as a weapon." When one contestant collapsed after reaching their limit, the aliens viewed it as a symbolic sacrifice, proving humanity's willingness to push boundaries for victory. Later, Joe took them to a comedy club, hoping they'd relax. Instead, the aliens interpreted the sharp humor and sarcastic jabs as psychological warfare, meant to weaken opponents with wit. Joe's laughter only solidified their belief that he thrived in this environment of verbal combat. But the moment that cemented their theory came when Joe mentioned his side gig as a freelance entrepreneur. He explained it casually, talking about building a small online business to make extra cash. To the aliens, this was the pinnacle of predatory behavior. Joe was not content with stability. He sought to expand his influence, conquering new territory in the digital landscape. His explanation of hustle culture was taken as evidence of an innate drive to dominate all aspects of life. By the end of the day, the aliens were certain they had uncovered the truth. Joe, despite his protests, was the embodiment of American dominance, a living blueprint of what it meant to be an apex predator. Joe, oblivious to the weight of their conclusions, merely shrugged and said, "Well, if you guys are done with your little study, I've got work tomorrow." The aliens exchanged knowing glances. Work, to them, was a battlefield where humans like Joe perfected their predatory instincts. They thanked him profusely, promising to return with more questions, while Joe walked away, still convinced they were just eccentric academics. For the aliens, though, this was only the beginning. They had seen enough to understand that humanity's potential was vast, and Joe, in their eyes, was the key to unlocking it. The apex predator theory was no longer a hypothesis. It was fact. The aliens reconvened aboard their vessel, their data complete, their theories solidified. To them, Joe was a living testament to humanity's potential, and his status as an apex predator of apex predators was undeniable. The crew debated their next steps. "Captain," Squill began, "it is clear that if we wish to secure a future alliance with these humans, we must approach them with the respect they command. Specifically, we must formalize our recognition of this Joe as Earth's representative." Rex nodded thoughtfully. "But we must tread carefully. If we provoke them, it could result in conflict. Americans, in particular, seem to escalate rapidly when challenged." With this in mind, the aliens returned to Joe, presenting him with an elaborate plaque, glowing faintly with alien script. They declared him the official champion of Earth. the first human entrusted with intergalactic diplomacy. Joe stared at the plaque, speechless, as they explained their reasoning. Your cunning, Rex said. Your leadership, your relentless drive, all these qualities are unmatched. We seek your guidance in understanding how to foster such dominance among our own species. Joe blinked, holding the plaque awkwardly. Thanks? But I think you've got the wrong guy. I'm just a regular dude. I eat pizza on Fridays and complain about gas prices like everyone else. The aliens leaned in, their interest intensifying. Your humility, Squill said, is the ultimate sign of strength. To mask such power under a veil of normalcy, it's a strategy beyond our comprehension. Joe sighed. Look, you're reading too much into this. Americans aren't special. We're just loud. We like big portions, big games, and big ideas. That doesn't make us better or worse than anyone else. But the aliens couldn't process the nuance. They viewed his statement as a calculated deflection to protect his species' secrets. Determined to help the aliens understand humanity better, Joe decided to give them a crash course on cultural diversity. He introduced them to international cuisines, showed them videos of different festivals, and explained that every region had unique traditions. At first, the aliens tried to reconcile this information with their apex predator framework. When they saw videos of peaceful protests, they misinterpreted them as tactical displays of organized resistance. A performance of traditional dance was mistaken for a combat demonstration. Joe's attempts to correct them only made things worse. You're telling me this isn't preparation for battle? Rex asked, pointing at a flamenco dancer stomping rhythmically. No, Joe said, exasperated. It's art. It's expression. Humans aren't all about competition. Sometimes we just enjoy things. The aliens exchanged skeptical looks, but they humored Joe's explanations, continuing to collect data. Despite their misunderstandings, Joe's efforts started to pay off. The aliens began to grasp that humanity's strength lay not in dominance alone but in its adaptability, creativity, and ability to find joy even in chaos. But then came the final twist. As the aliens prepared to leave, they broadcast their findings to their homeworld. The message, a mix of admiration and confusion, painted humanity, particularly Americans, as cosmic juggernauts. They described Joe as a figure of mythic proportions, a symbol of Earth's unmatched ingenuity and resilience. Joe, overhearing the transmission, groaned. Great! Now the universe thinks I'm some kind of superhuman. As the alien ship ascended, leaving behind a trail of light, Joe returned to his normal life. He went back to work, to barbecues, and to weekend football games, shaking his head at the absurdity of the past few days. But something had changed. As the weeks passed, Joe noticed subtle differences in how his neighbors treated him. A nod here, a curious glance there. Somehow, word had spread, and in his small town, Joe had gained an inexplicable reputation. One evening, as he flipped burgers in his backyard, his neighbor approached with a conspiratorial smile. Hey, Joe. I heard you're, important now. Joe sighed, flipping a patty with exaggerated nonchalance. Don't believe everything you hear, Frank. Yet, deep down, Joe couldn't help but wonder. What if the aliens were right in a way? Maybe humanity's strength wasn't in any one trait but in its contradictions, the drive to compete tempered by the ability to connect, the chaos balanced by moments of clarity. For now, though, Joe was content to keep flipping burgers, sipping his beer, and letting the universe believe whatever it wanted. After all, if humanity was as unpredictable as the aliens thought, it wasn't a bad reputation to have. And as for the aliens, they left Earth with an unshakable conclusion. Humans were apex predators in every sense of the word, and none more so than the enigmatic Americans. Whether through competition, collaboration, or sheer stubbornness, they were a force to be reckoned with, a species both bewildering and inspiring. The message was clear. If the galaxy wanted to understand humanity, they'd have to start with Joe. And if they wanted to survive, they'd better prepare for the unpredictable.